When I'm looking for a TV with HDR impact, I'm looking for a TV that is just going to jump out and wow me. And this Hisense U8N is one of those TVs that can absolutely do that with its peak brightness capability, and the HDR presentation of the U8N overall is so impressive. The U8N is the successor to the U8K. You'd be looking at the U8N if you want to get just a little bit better picture quality than the U7N, which I did check out on this channel earlier this year. I bought that TV for a bedroom and I absolutely love it. Now the U8N is one of the TVs that I've been looking forward to checking out, so thank you to Hisense for sending this out. Alright, so let's get into some connectivity with the TV. You have 4 HDMI ports, 2 of which are HDMI 2.1 compatible, 2 USB 2.0 connections, a digital optical audio out, 3.5mm audio out, an RF tuner, and of course an Ethernet port. The TV also comes equipped with Wi-Fi 6E, which not a lot of TVs can say. The TV supports Dolby Vision and HDR10 Plus, which again, not a lot of TVs can go ahead and say that. Only a few brands. Alright, so what about the audio? The audio overall sounds really good. It has pretty good inbuilt TV speakers. I would say that for the money, it's going to be hard to find TV speakers that are better than this at the price point of the Hisense U8N. You could definitely tell that this TV has a built-in subwoofer. So overall, the sound is really good on this TV. I'm not saying that it's going to replace a soundbar, but you may not need it depending on your room type. Now, when we get into the smart features of this TV, it is using the Google TV interface, and it is pretty fast to navigate. It seems to be snappier than most Google TV OSs, so I don't know if they're using just a lighter version of Google OS, but it does seem to be snappier and faster than most other Google TVs that I've tried in the past. So that's a really good thing. I think anytime you could speed up the actual process of running your TV, that's nothing but great news for everybody. And when it comes down to setting up the TV, it was pretty quick. All right, now let's get into picture quality. The first thing you notice when you're looking at the Hisense U8N on the specifications for the website, you'll see that it has up to 3000 nits of peak brightness. The TV does come equipped with 1600 local dimming zones, which is going to be pretty good overall. It's a mini LED TV, and I would have to say there's a lot of great things to say about this TV overall in terms of the way that it's handling the backlight performance. The contrast is good. I like the contrast for a mini LED TV. It does a really good job controlling blooming in most cases. There's still going to be those challenging scenes, of course, where you are going to maybe see some blooming on occasion here and there. Overall, I thought the TV looks really good for a mini LED TV. But I can't overstate how good the contrast is for a mini LED TV because it is just going to look really good and almost OLED level blacks at times when you're looking at the U8N in certain cases. It's not going to do the same job as an OLED, of course, because it doesn't have that same technology, but it gets pretty dang close in a lot of cases. I like this TV a lot when it comes down to contrast. There's not too many bad things to say about it there. There is still going to be certain scenes, especially in gaming, when you're talking about dark areas, where you will notice that it's still an LCD at the end of the day. Alright, so the contrast is pretty good overall. What about the brightness? The brightness is advertised to be about 3000 nits, and man, does it hit. There is a really good sense of brightness here, especially when you're watching HDR. The HDR brightness just jumps off the screen at you when you're watching content that is bright and beautiful. It sticks out, man. I'm telling you that the HDR experience does really pop. The scenes can really just come to life with this HDR brightness. This is the HDR impact that you really go looking for with some of the more premium TVs, and this TV is a fraction of those prices. So I think overall, it's a really good look for the Hisense U8N to have this type of capability in the TV. But not only that, to be able to control the contrast as good as it does, but also still give you impactful HDR, that is one of the most impressive things about the U8N. For me, is that it really does look like a premium TV, and I'm not paying premium prices for it. So I think that's something really good that Hisense has going on for sure. And I do want to note that I was watching this in filmmaker mode and it was still super bright. You could use any type of mode that you prefer. Of course, all the modes look really good on this TV, as you can see me flipping through them now. Use the one that you personally prefer the most. at the end of the day, that's all that really matters is your personal preference, not mine personally. If you're finding that the picture isn't popping as much as you would want to, make sure you turn on the dynamic tone mapping. This really does add some texture and detail to the picture overall, as it's going to apply their own dynamic tone mapping algorithm to it. And it seems to do a little bit more on top of that, like maybe some edge enhancement or some depth mapping. It seems like it is going to sharpen the picture a little bit more when you're talking about the images on the screen, just looking like they have a little bit more clarity to them. It's really just a personal preference, so you guys can use whichever one you think looks the best. Now, when we're talking about the color on this TV, the color is fantastic. It has really good color brightness for an LCD TV. Pretty great overall when it comes down to bright, vivid colors. And to my eyes, the colors looked like they were pretty on point. I had it next to a few other TVs and nothing really stuck out as being out of the ordinary. And that's a really good sign, as the TVs just come out of the box looking better and better each year. And Hisense keeps doing a pretty good job of this overall. Alright, so on the topic of SDR brightness, this is probably one of the reasons why most people buy an LCD TV, is because it can get SDR brightness very bright overall. So if you're watching sports or anything that requires you to be having the TV as bright as possible to overcome some light, this is going to be a really good way of doing it with the Hisense U8N. I don't think many people are going to have a problem with this in a bright room. It has no real issue with glare overall, and the screen coating isn't too bad on the Hisense U8N either. So I think these combinations make it a really good bright room candidate for a lot of people. So let's talk about the image processor. So the image processor in this TV is going to be the HiView Engine Pro. It's featured in the U7N and the U8N this year. It's going to have AI features built into it. So you have AI HDR dynamic tone mapping, like I mentioned earlier. It does seem to add a little bit more to it than you would see with a normal dynamic tone mapping algorithm. So there is something there with that. It also does have the AI detail enhancement and noise reduction. So some really advanced features in this processor itself. How does it actually look when it's running in real time? It looks pretty good overall. There's not too many hiccups. And I would say that the motion is the only area where I do see some areas where we could see improvement in the future. So now I want to get to game mode. Game mode is really incredible on this TV. It's a little bit dimmer in game mode than it is outside of game mode, but it's not anything that's going to be really noticeable for most people. In game mode, you're still going to get some of the LCD issues that you get when playing games, and that's just inherent to the LCD technology. When it comes down to game mode, it is going to have some hiccups there, but overall, for an LCD, it looks really good, and I would say that it's pretty up there in levels of the Bravia 9 in terms of the game mode presentation and the way that game mode performs. I thought that overall, man, a lot of these mini LED TVs are getting very bright and having just impactful HDR that it's going to be really hard to tell them apart unless you're really nitpicking. That said, I did see more aspects of blooming with the U8N than I did on the Bravia 9. The TV is capable of 144 Hz capability on two of those HDMI 2.1 ports, and it does have a way to accelerate the game mode into 240 Hz at 1080p if you are looking to go to 240 Hz with sacrificing some resolution. You're able to do that with this TV. And when it came to the game mode options, there was a lot here to dig through. You actually had the ability to put the FPS counter on your screen and keep it there the whole entire time. This is something I don't see in other TVs, and I think this is a really cool feature for the Hisense TVs. Now, when you're looking at some of the options that are available, you still have things like a crosshair selection, so you can put a crosshair on the screen, which is pretty typical of what you see in other TVs in regards to their game mode. There's also a game genre selection. Interesting enough that with this TV, there was a mode specifically designed for Black Myth Wukong, which I'm displaying on the screen right here, as you can see. I wonder if there's going to be any other games in the future that Hisense will support just like this. That'd be really cool to see. So when it comes down to the cons of this TV, I would say that there's just a few. You have a little bit of instances of blooming that you will see from time to time. Again, this is pretty typical of most mini LED TVs. Some lifted black bars in certain cases. Again, another typical thing for mini LED TVs. And game mode definitely does have some flashlighting and some black smearing, which again, you can see in some LCD TVs from time to time. So this is something that you just want to be aware of, that it does still have a lot of the same issues that a lot of mini LED TVs have. It's more so just towards the technology itself. As far as things that aren't related to that, I would say that picture processing is pretty good overall. There has been some instances where I noticed some image artifacts on the screen. I don't know if that's related to the motion or if that's related to the picture processing itself. It is just something that I have ran into. It's not something that occurred a lot, so I don't think it's going to bother most people, but I did want to make note of it. Of course, I did mention that motion does have some hiccups from time to time, a little bit of stutter or judder. It's not the cleanest motion that I've seen on a TV, but it's not bad overall. And I think most of the time when I was watching this TV, I didn't run into those issues. I really think this is something that is more rare than it is a common occurrence. The Hisense U8N seems to outperform a lot of TVs that are just a little bit more expensive than it. And the TVs that are a lot more expensive than it, it actually does a really good job of looking almost as good as those TVs at times. And so I come to this conclusion: if you're looking for a mini LED TV and you're not trying to go with an OLED TV, this might actually be a smart option to go with, because the price tag just makes sense. If you can't quite get to an OLED TV, this is where I would be looking when it comes down to a mini LED TV, because this is the price range that is just under an OLED TV. So tell me what you think of the U8N. I'd love to hear your opinion below in the comments. If you like the U8N but you can't quite get to this price level, check out the U7N. It's just a little bit cheaper and it only performs just a little bit worse. Check out the U7N right here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.